I'd like to start by wishing the Minister the very best and the birth of her grandchild. It's a truly joyous occasion, it must be for you. And it's a bit unfortunate that you're probably here with us today, but we'll try and speed this up. But again, to you and your family, great congratulations. It's beautiful to hear a child crying inside here a while ago. It's a lovely sound, and you'll probably have many hours of that ahead of you, but the best to look to you. And I'd also, if you bear my indulgence, I have to welcome Doreen Walsh, a student from St. Brogan's Bandon here today. She's studying politics and law and has a very bright future ahead of her, just probably well trained by her grandfather. But she's put together a lot of this speech for me, so Minister, if it's any way critical, Doreen might share some of the blame. But I'd like to talk about, issues under the social welfare bill. There's no point in looking at everything being negative, but certainly as being in opposition here, you have to look at issues that probably need a lot more focus on, maybe in the next budget. A lot of good social welfare payments have been given out to people in the last week, and that means a lot to people because they are under stress and under pressure, and that's to be welcomed. I've often been a fighter here for the carers and the means test and the carers allowance. It's a serious issue, Minister, that needs to. I think if you look at the model, I think in around the medical cards, and you look at the model in around the carers, there's no sympathy out there for someone that might be 10 or 12 years over and above, but providing a fantastic caring service to their loved one at home or even their neighbour. And that, in fairness to the medical card, if you look at it, you're allowed, bring in expenses and costs and mortgages and different things that might bring your income down to a very, very low level. In the situation with carers, it's very much means tested on your most likely it could be the husband's income, and that's very unfair because the husband's income might be quite high, but the expenses might be higher in many cases, and it means that somebody is saving the state tens of thousands of euros, but sadly is not getting any kind of respect. And and I say it's mainly women, and I have to state that, and it's, I don't mean that in any bad sense, but women have pride in having a few quid in their pocket, the same as everybody else, that they can go to after doing something for someone and after saving the state, but still minding someone, whether it is the neighbour or the loved one. And that's blocked to them because somebody has 2 extra cows at home and has taken them over the limit. But the extra cows cost them a fortune in the first place. So it's just picking that on the farmers. There could be some other income too out there, but there could be an awful lot of expenses that are not taken into account, that do be taken into account in the medical card. And if we had a model somewhere around that, and you have to credit, like I've often seen people putting in a medical card application form very rough already, but then when they didn't realise the expenses that they could have put in, and when they put them in, that was understood, and there was a different outcome, and the person got the medical card and needed it badly. So I would like that, because people are finding it difficult. I have a situation in West Cork at this present time. I have a lady almost 80 years of age, and I know this is not medical care, but like you're talking about carers, the neighbours are trying to mind the lady. She can't come home from hospital because they can't put together a home care package. There's no home help for the woman. So imagine that she had a home help 3 times a day for 5 days a week and 3 times over the weekend, and they were happy with that, and they looked for that when they got back, and she spent a bit of time in hospital. She's going home now, and unfortunately she has no home help. So the neighbour can't get carers because her income is over and above, and she's caring her voluntarily, which is brilliant and well done. But sadly, she can't, at this stage, she can't do this on her own, and she needs help, and unfortunately that's not happening. That's just, one of many situations I find. We did mention the USC charge in our budget proposal, the Rural Independent Group, Minister, and okay, the USC charge, like somebody said, we're probably a bit too dramatic to expect that it could be basically abolished. And it's a source of some kind of income to the state, and there's no point in saying any differently. And I argued a point with the Labour Party and the Green Party on television one night about that, and they were adamant that, yeah, it's brilliant, stay on course, it's a great idea. But the argument I put up was that the now Taoiseach Leo Varadkar did say that he would abolish the USC charge a number of years ago, and he has failed to do that in his term inside here. So USC charges another tax. And a lot of young people say to me, including my own daughters, and sometimes you'd wonder, they'll be thinking there shouldn't be any tax at all. But anyway, they'll be asking me, why are we paying all this tax? Tax for this and tax for that, and that's, of course, they want to have a little bit of a good time, maybe over the weekend, and they're wondering why are they paying all the tax. But the USC charge is something that was brought in a number of years ago. There was a promise that it would be abolished. It hasn't been abolished, and it needs, and we plead with the Minister to look at steering us towards abolishing it at some stage or another. We did call the Rural Independent Group for a welfare increase of €30 across the board. Now, you know, yeah, people say, look, you're only grabbing at figures here, and you're just throwing out a figure that sounds dramatic. And okay, I could accept that. And I think just €12 is, but I just look at people that are, you know, the senior citizens and people on disability and invalidity and all those payments, and they are finding it an extreme struggle to survive at this present time. And I would think that €30, while it sounds a lot, would have given them some cushion to fall back on, and that's, at this present time, it has not been afforded to them. €12 is a help. There's no point in anybody saying any different here. And anybody that gets €12 extra in their whatever pension or income even will welcome that. But at the same time, it's not going far enough, Minister. You have a home heating oil bills, you have coal gone up. You have, I'm sure if someone pulls a cigarette or a pint has probably gone up. There's all these increases that soaks away that €12, and it probably ends up being €4 or €5 increase. Nothing wrong with that, you'll say, but at the same time, it's not enough for people that are struggling out there. And quite a lot of people that I know are in that situation, especially senior citizens. They've really seen a lot of hits, and you know, go down to the shop, you go to the cafe, things are gone from 9 to 13% in the hospitality sector. So like again, somebody like to go out for a cup of coffee, go to, everything is added, and the hairdressers, everything with the 9 to 13% is added tax. So that 12 has gone down to 10, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then it's whittled away to nothing. And it's, you know, and that's why people would say to me, sure, we can get a bit. And I'd be roguing some of the elderly people. Say, for God's sake, you got €12. You can't be complaining. They said, that's nothing, they'd say to me. Because older people are more prudent with money, but they see so much of the money going back out of their pockets. You know, with the high level of expenses. And of course, I keep going on about it, about the carbon tax and different taxes that are there at this present time. People of Ireland are crucified with tax. And of course, I'd like to think that, you know, a lot of people felt that this budget mightn't be for the working person. Minister, a lot of people feel squeezed. They're out there working every day of the week. They're the people pulling up to the petrol pump trying to throw a drop of diesel or petrol into the car. They have no choice. The expense, the cost of that is crucifying them. The cost of putting children through school, the cost of children's care, it's cost down on their back. And they feel, and especially those who are self-employed and employed out there, feel that there's an absolute punishment for them to succeed, and they're calling on us to force or to find some sort of change out there that I suppose keeps their very survival afloat. A lot of self-employed ministers are very serious worry about them, are very frustrated. They just feel that they're being absolutely bled to death and expected to do everything. There's another, I think, 3 days sick leave. Somebody was telling me recently, they said, where are we going to keep getting the money for all this? Because people are ringing, they'll use up the 3 days and they get it. They use 3 months and they get it. But the self-employed are really they're the squeeze middle, and a lot of them are the cafes and the hairdressers that now some of them face their doors being closed, and some of that's happening in my own constituency in South West Cork. I see it myself firsthand, and people ring me and talk to me about it, you know, and they feel stressed. They're going through very difficult times. Fuel allowance, a little bit like the carers. Minister, again, I think there needs to be a little bit of movement there. I know you've raised the bands. I respect that, and I appreciate that, and thank you for that. But again, there is people not qualifying that have serious debts of a mortgage or, you know, childcare, blah, whatever. And it might be an elderly person. Some elderly people do have mortgages still, and they're putting their figures in front of me, but their figures don't count when it comes. It's just based on income as such. And again, I look at the medical card model where there's a little bit of movement. You don't have to have huge movement. We can't be bringing in people, because I do know people come into me with $1,000 a week looking for fuel loans, and I know they're not going to get it, and there's no point in trying. But there is genuine people that come in there that are a little bit over the threshold and do have the genuine expenses, and it's not being, there's no great amount of sympathy out there for them. I'd like to talk in the time I've left about a couple of other things. The bereavement grant, I think, is something that we've been very vocal in the Rural Independent Group for the last number of years, since the Labour Party abolished, or part of a government that abolished the bereavement grant. And look, Minister, it's the cost of a funeral, the sadness of it and the cost of it, and many people come in. I know there's emergency, you can go to the social welfare officer and get emergency funding, but people don't like to be, as they feel it's kind of maybe a form of begging as such, at such a low time in their lives. But the bereavement grant was a grant that helped them. It didn't pay for all the expenses of the funeral, but it went towards paying something, and it made it a goal that could be reached. And it's an area that has been ignored since it was dropped. Sadly, it should never have been dropped. But I'd ask you, Minister, to re-look at that model again down through the years and reintroduce the bereavement grant. It's a huge cost to families. And, you know, I know families have got to look at the expenses of funerals too and see, you know, can they squeeze and tighten the belt a bit? And that can be done too, I can assure you, because I was an undertaker and I saw for years where things could be done slightly different by families. But, you know, in most genuine cases, they have a genuine loved one dead. They don't have the money to pay, or have it, but don't have it all to pay. And some undertakers are just tremendous. They'll take a part payment and take another part payment. But surely be to God, the bereavement grant that was there and stood for years and was, in some way, it wasn't just simply handed out, it was in some way monitored, could easily be reintroduced again and give people a small chance. Minister, a small chance to pay the funerals. I meet a lot of self-employed, Minister, and I think there needs to be an absolute refocus, and I mentioned self-employed already, but in relation to the self-employed getting a benefit if they're ill, or if they're, you know, have a health issue. I have somebody at the moment and they're looking at how many stamps that person had. Sure, God Almighty, the person was sick, and as the person is sick, they had a serious accident, and now he can't get a payment. But so the self-employed, and I even have a relation up the country there recently that told me he got nothing in his years working in the self-employed, and I can't understand that there isn't a mechanism there that a self-employed people, the same as the employed people, get a genuine injury, that there isn't a payment for that period of time that they're out or injured or sick. And I would urge you, Minister, to look into that, because a lot of them are not getting payment, and it's not an easy road to travel. So if you're working all your life and you do fall and get injured or get hurt, like this gentleman I have in West Cork, he's not going to get a payment. And many more that I know are not going to get a payment. And that's very, very, very unfortunate. I'd just like to talk about the elderly at this present time, Minister. I think it's a very important issue about elderly people at the moment. So many of them are getting a review of their pension. They're absolutely terrified. I'm absolutely afraid. I'm afraid for some people. I met a lady, I don't mind because she won't be identified by mentioning my constituency in Kinsale. Recently, I thought the woman would get a heart attack inside my office. The poor woman was beside herself. And what is wrong? A review. Another lady not far away from me told me she was getting 20 euros for a bit of ground. They found it out and they went after her for the 20 euros. In the name of God, that's our own people we're chasing. You know, Phil Hogan said one time, we'll chase you to the grave. And this is what's happening. And these people, Minister, I'd ask you, like it's part of the social welfare, that elderly people would be more careful, because they're absolutely terrified. I had another person, they have serious Alzheimer's and they got it. And Jesus, I had a job, you know, to explain. They couldn't. I had to try and get contact with family, whatever. But there's a numpteen amount of those letters all over the country, and genuinely people are stressed. And I would dearly appreciate, Minister, that you would look into that, because blast it all, they're the people that built our country and worked hard in our country, and we wouldn't have an island like we have today only for them. And I'd appreciate, Minister, that you would look into that. in relation to other, payments, there's a lot of people out there with difficulties with banks and mortgage distresses. And I know, Minister, it isn't everything you can take on board at all. But I see there AIB sheds most remaining crisis-era problem loans for 100 million, and they sort off the loans of people that are in crisis, have a crisis mortgage or a crisis payment as such. And Minister, there is nothing out there for these people. It says AIB has managed to shift most of its remaining crisis-era problem loans after selling a portfolio of mainly commercial property debt for about 100 million to US distress. And it goes on then to state that the AIB are going to make sure that the people that are in these distressed mortgages are going to get proper help and proper support going forward. That's absolute nonsense and lies. Borrowers whose loans are sold are afforded the same regulatory protections they had before the sale. That is wrong. I met with people in West Cork recently that have a serious issue and are losing their business, and you have no idea. Imagine these guys sell it off to a credit company. The credit company write out to these people about their business being in debt. They write back through a solicitor, which is the proper channel. They get several letters, and there's several letters going back and forth. You have never corresponded. You have never corresponded. And they continue to write back at their own cost, through a solicitor, just saying, yeah, we're willing to do business, we're willing to sit down, start talking about it, and they won't talk. It's an astonishing situation. That's AIB could do that to its customers. And that's what they're doing to the customers. And they're like, these are people that are, at stress at this time. The cost of living is another thing, Minister, and I have little time left. But, for a lot of people out there, as I said, I'm very concerned about parents that have young families and, are trying their best to make ends meet. And the budgets don't really, crack it for a lot of them. They get small reliefs, but very, very small reliefs. And I think if we look at all the taxes that we put on people at this present time, it's just impossible. It's very, very hard. And you go into your, as I say, filling says you pay 50% of the fuel you put into your car to tax. And then where the Green government says they don't want to have fuel in the country, they're delighted only for the country big and wallop, according to them. But they want to tax the ordinary mother and father, the ordinary pensioner out there, the ordinary person that gets up in the morning, works hard, tax them out of control completely. And people can't keep taking that hit, Minister. You've got to give something back to that ordinary hard-working person, or the self-employed person, as I said before this. I also would ask to look at once-off payments, and there is difficult situations, and nobody can account for every one of these difficult situations. Minister, you have the flooding recently, and I'm happy that the people in Middleton got at least the compensation, a lot of the compensation. Some of them contacted me, says they didn't get what it cost them, but at least there was efforts being made, and I fully respect that, because when we got flooded in Bantry and Skibbereen a number of years ago, there was pittance pegged at the people of West Cork. Pittance, 5,000. And no way, I begged them. There was water 4 and 5 and 6 feet high inside businesses. And I begged the government at the time to look outside the pale and not look at the small, derisory 5,000 with the Red Cross, that they had to look at a bigger figure, and it wasn't. And we have situations, and I have situations in West Cork where there's a house, a lovely couple lost their home last week, and they're elderly due to fire. And they're elderly, and they had lapsed their insurance by mistake, human error. At 80-something years of age, we'll all have human error. I have at 55. And there's nothing out there for them. Pittance, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 or something like that, if it's really fought for. And just, there is difficult situations, Minister, that are not addressed in this finance bill. And in this social welfare bill. And I would ask you to re-look at some of those issues and to try and see, can we put forward some slight changes. We'll be putting forward amendments, all going well, and that's our entitlement. I suppose another issue is farm assist and fish assist. Especially, it's an area that affects a lot of people in rural Ireland, and it's a lifeline for quite a lot of them. But the amount of times that they're investigated when they're getting this farm assist, in case they get 60 or 70 euros more in the mart for the cow or the calf or whatever, and the amount of time that the fishermen, are being looked into their income is very unfair. And, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility. Yes, you could have a year that you might have a little more, but there's also a year you have less. and that's not being afforded to those people out there at the present time that keep being investigated. And it's just awful cumbersome to try and do, carries out, looking into your finances, and some people have to get the help of an accountant, which costs money. So look, between the issues I brought up today is the carers, the USC, the pension not going up 12, but not more than that. Fuel allowance. I do know that it's not your area, but there was a promise of funding under some funding function for Cancer Connect in West Cork. It's been promised 3 or 4 years in a row. A magical service delivered all over Cork County and City, taking people for their cancer treatment, and there's no funding available. I mentioned the home help, as I said, the fuel allowance, the foster carers, the bereavement grant and self-employed, and I hope that you'll be able to make movement, and thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Deputy.